Hello and welcome to Back to the Feature with Evan and Gabby. Double features, double takes. This is the podcast where we talk about two movies, one new, one older, what makes them a good pair, and how the history of films influences the present. I'm Evan.
And I'm Gabby.
And today we are discussing Wicked for Good and The Wizard of Oz. Two films set in the wonderful world of, you guessed it, Oz. Truly, there is no place like home. It's been a clock tick since we've covered some movie news, so let's dive in. The biggest news being that bids to buy Warner Brothers were due last week. Gabby, did you put your bid in?
Yes, I bid 5 cents, 5 pennies that are no longer being made. So that's actually kind of a rare offer on the table. I think that they should consider it.
Yeah, I just had one $2 coin, so I think you got me beat, I guess. Or $2 coin, $2 bill, whatever it is.
We should have combined forces. We should have had a Back to the Feature offer for Warner Brothers.
Yeah, a few coins in a dream. That's the platform we run on. Anyways, the three biggest bidders at the very least, the news is all around Netflix, Paramount, and Comcast Universal having put in some bids to buy Warner Brothers. You know, there's lots of people who are more informed on this topic, more well-researched, the business end a lot better than we do, that I'm sure have lots of thoughts about how this could play out. But I guess just from a pure kind of like, we're in the industry, we're adjacent to the industry, who's to say, right? But we're around, we live in the city. Gabby, what is the best case scenario for you out of these three potential buyers?
That's a great question, because I feel like there is no good outcome for all of Hollywood. I mean, I think that the best case scenario is that Warner Brothers and HBO get split up into a TV and a film division. They split Warner Brothers and Discovery, so to speak, and that it is purchased by a platform that is committed to at least maintaining the theatrical experience for Warner Brothers. It would be a real shame not to. It's one of the oldest studios in existence, and to see it just kind of fold underneath the banner of Netflix or Paramount kind of seems like I still can't quite wrap my brain around it. To me, I guess, best case scenario would be Netflix buys it and splits them, but maybe, I guess, not Netflix. I don't want the Ellisons to win. So I don't know. Maybe I'd go underdog and say Comcast. The Ellisons just want to own everything, and I don't see them sticking to keep they currently are saying that they would keep the Paramount and Warner Brothers as separate entities, but I just don't trust that in my heart. I don't trust that word. But Netflix has said that they're open to keeping theatrical for the bigger tentpole Warner Brothers releases. I also don't know how much I believe that. So I just don't know that there is a great best case scenario, but I know you have some takes that you're ready to get off. So enlighten me, Evan. What is the best case scenario here?
Yeah, I actually feel like I'm in a similar boat to you in the sense that I do think that Warner Brothers being bought by either Paramount or like Comcast Universal, it just feels like not a great move there, because it just is the Disney Fox thing all over again. I think this consolidation just means like there's just less movies to go around. Like, I didn't even think about that, right? That like Fox was probably putting out more movies as Fox when it was by itself than being, owned by Disney. And so
Fox is gone now. Once in a while you get a Fox Searchlight movie, but those are only reserved for, specific kind of prestige titles that they're trying to push for awards. Otherwise, everything is Disney. But there used to be, the banner of just a Fox movie, and that doesn't exist anymore. Or 20th Century Fox, but just, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, so that's why I think that, like, in a weird way, and maybe this is, like, just because, like, we came up, like, with Netflix in a sense, like, we grew up watching Netflix was like a big deal. Like that's how people were like caught up on Breaking Bad and watched The Office a billion times over. But I do think that if Netflix were to make a move as big as this, that and given all the kind of like observations we've had on the podcast about how they're kind of leaning into theatrical, it does seem like they're able to like use that as their like theatrical thing, you know, as and keep whatever the Netflix thing is like Netflix, right? I that's like the hope, but obviously, you know,
I just don't
Ted
trust them.
Sarandos is like wild, you know. He'll
I
do
don't
whatever.
trust. I do not trust that Ted Sarandos would suddenly be like, yes, all of the Dune movies should absolutely be released in IMAX 70 and, like have an exclusive 90-day theatrical window. No, that bitch is going to put them day and date on Netflix. That's what's going to
Yeah.
happen. He's
He'll say
going to
I
want more subscribers and he's going to like put it under the banner and make it a Netflix property. And Timothy
mhm.
Chalamet will do, 1,000 Netflix tie-ins and pop-ups, with a gun to his head someplace. It will not be a Marty Supreme situation.
Oh boy. Yeah. So I guess, you know, we'll have to see. I mean, and I'm imagining there aren't any other major players in the mix. I feel like we may have heard about that.
I don't think
But
so.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see when this news like finally breaks.
I'm kind of surprised that there are only 3 bidders. I'm surprised that like a few rogue places didn't just like put in their bids, like shoot
Yeah.
their shot to own Warner Brothers. Not that it was going to work, but even just to get their names in the news as like potential buyers.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
what
surprised.
what would be funny like left turn kind of like company to have bid for this?
Ooh,
Um
good question.
Chase
I feel
Bank.
like, yeah, or like Revlon, like a cosmetics brand or something, trying
Oh
to
yeah.
buy. Yeah. Revlon
Uh
presents Dune Prophecy.
Michelin, the Michelin got Michelin
Michelin
tires.
Man. Mm. How about Kirkland? Kirkland's finest, Dune Prophecy.
Ooh, Kirkland's good. Yeah, because I mean, there's
Costco, Kirkland.
tons of spice at Costco.
So much spice at Costco. The spice aisle at Costco, if one of those pallets like falls over, I'll be coughing for a month. Like,
The people handing out the samples just shrug, being like, "The spice
ooh.
must flow." All right. Well, let's get into talking about Wicked for Good. Gabby, how did you
Yes.
watch this latest movie in the Wicked franchise?
Mm, I'm so glad you asked. We've been really anticipating this movie since we started doing this podcast, no? Like
Yeah,
very
that's true.
much.
This is one Gabby and I are kind of we not to spoil anything, but we were not fans of the first movie. And so
We
this was a
are
movie
haters.
this was a movie we
Haters and
knew
proud.
was on the horizon, and we were like, well, we have to steel ourselves for this. We have to be ready. I think there's also a part of one of the previous podcast episodes where you're like, Evan, we have tickets, right? And I'm like, no, I don't have tickets yet.
That definitely happened. But I, as a good citizen of Oz, had tickets for this like a month ago. I
hmm
specifically got them for an early like matinee on Monday because I knew that I would be leaving to go away for the holidays. So I did end up seeing a pretty early screening at the AMC Glendale on a Monday. Lots of families and kids at this screening. Thankfully, none of them were really singing. Thank you to those parents for controlling your children. I'm sure that you believe they're the next Ariana Grande, but I do not. So, did your movie start with the little rollout of
hmm
Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo
hmm
introducing the movie? Okay. That happened, and there were 2 very cute little girls that like audibly were like, thank you, witches," in my screening.
Oh
I
my
thought that
god,
was very
that's
cute.
so
That was very
cute.
cute. Ugh,
Holy.
that was an adorable way to start the film.
Yeah. Aw,
How did
that's
you
cute.
see this movie?
Oh, so you saw it in Dolby with good sound, huh?
I
Allegedly.
did. It was incredibly loud. It was no, my screening was very, very sound forward. And it is a
Okay.
musical, so I guess that's good. But yeah, I was like
Yeah.
vibrating in my seat during No Good Deed.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Cause I saw it and, got a shout out that in the history of this podcast, we've done 21, 22 episodes of this podcast so
Ooh.
far. Um, During this podcast, AMC 16 in Burbank has gotten the XL Theater. As I always say, whenever I go to the XL Theater, absolutely shout out. It has saved my life every time. And by save my life, I mean there's still a decent seat opening night when I realize I still have to buy tickets for these stupid movies. And so
Mm,
I saw it at the XL Theater. It was a little bit further back than I normally sit, but it was a Thursday night preview, so it's quite packed. Lots of people wearing pink and green. Um,
okay, so you were with the diehards. You were with the real fans.
Yeah, yeah. And we had a lot of people saying thank you after Nicole Kidman came on. So I guess
Oh,
that
okay.
help works too.
Not a single soul was reactive to the Nicole Kidman thing in my screening. Maybe she's more of an evening player, but the matinee
Yeah.
people were really not having her.
They're like, we need the movie to start,
They
please.
really did.
Well, let's get into this movie. Wicked for Good was released November 21st, 2025, directed by John M. Chu, written by Winnie Holtzman and Dana Fox, produced by Mark Platt and David Stone, starring Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Michelle Yeoh, and Jeff Goldblum. This is the sequel to Wicked Part 1 from last year. This takes place 5 years after the events of that movie. Very interesting. I did not know about that time skip.
Mm-hmm.
Elphaba crusades against the Wizard of Oz in this movie, desperately trying to show the people of Oz the truth. Meanwhile, Glinda and Fiyero have become high-ranking members of the Wizard's propaganda machine, and we see the events unfold from there. Gabby, how'd you feel about this movie?
Um, Not good, as the title might suggest, of the movie. Do you think that they called it that because they wanted everyone to have to use the word good when they talked about it?
I mean, it definitely makes the pull quotes easier if someone mangles their words a little
Mm,
bit.
that's so true. I'm cynical enough to believe that that may have been a factor, but I don't know. I think somehow this movie was less egregious to me as the first one. I think that because the reason for that being though was just that I really didn't like the first one so much that I was prepared for this one. Like I was like, okay, it can't get that much worse. I've seen one of these. How like I saw it not in a preview screening, so I had already read the reviews. I knew what I was going into, and that critics and even like diehard fans were not like singing the praises of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was ready. Like I think that my expectations were just at a place where I was not as disappointed or as actively angry as I was by the first
Mm.
movie. But that's not to say that I think this movie is good. I do think that it's not very good. I think it's long and stretched out. The story is very, very thin. And from my understanding, that is a common complaint about the second act of the musical. I think it's just a source material issue. I can say I have seen Wicked, the musical. I saw the original run of Wicked when I was like 12 years old. My cousin Vanessa took me to see it. Shout out. But I can tell you that with my full chest, I don't remember a single thing about the second half of Wicked. I don't. I don't even remember For Good. Like, I don't even remember the song For Good. Like, I couldn't tell you a single thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's just an issue of like the second half of the show is not as strong as the first half of the show.
I mean, and I think that that's a thing that you could say about many musicals in a sense of
Yeah,
that like I'm
definitely.
I'm not like a big musical diehard as in terms of like knowing the history of musicals, right? But I do think that a common thing that happens in musicals is that usually the second act is very reflective of the first act, right? There's a lot of reprises of songs, there's a lot of using very similar themes musically. You can hear a little bit of that happening in the second part as well. But I think to your point, Gabby, like not remembering anything from the second half of Wicked is because all the fun stuff is in the first half. And in
Yeah.
Act Two of this musical, it's not as fun. Like, if anything, like I could not tell you a single song from part two, and I just watched this movie, right? All I could just say is like, I have been changed for the for good. That's it. That's the only
Mm.
song, right? And
Good
if it's
song. They
just,
nailed that one.
yeah, if it's
They
one
sang that
song
shit
out of the
out.
whole movie, this 2.5 hour movie or however long it was, I'm like, ugh,
It's also
not
in the
great.
title, so that's kind of cheating. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but
Um.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So.
I think you're right. I think that in a lot of musicals, it's kind of like the second half of the musical, especially with those reprisals, it's like just hammering home the point of the first
Yeah.
half. It's a lot of just kind of re reinstating the theme and the plot and
Mm-hmm.
wrapping everything up in like a nice tidy bow. And with this musical, I think that they have a little bit of a more of a burden, so to speak, because of the original source material that comes with the Wizard of Oz, and they clearly, feel a need in the musical, but more so in the movie. And I think that this is partially because John M. Chu has just cited The Wizard of Oz as a huge inspiration to him as a filmmaker, but they
Mm-hmm.
feel more compelled to tie in more elements of The Wizard of Oz. And I personally didn't love that. I know that it's part of the musical, but I think that they really kind of extended that kind the metaphors and the Easter eggs and all of that in the movie, and I just found it a little bit grating.
I almost wish they went like harder in a certain sense, but we can talk about that in a little bit more in detail. For me, just to kind of like be very straight up about it, like I don't have any relationship to the musical. I had a really bad reaction to the first film, and apologies to, if if you used to watch me on the break room and I said I really liked the movie. I really didn't like the movie, so no, I think specifically with the break room though, I felt like I knew everyone at there really loved that first movie, and I wanted to be pretty easy on it. But I wasn't a big fan of the first one. I found it very frustrating, and I think similar to you, like I mean, I watched the movie opening night, but I did read a lot of, or at least see the headlines for a lot of reviews. I saw a lot of critics saying like this movie is not good. Um, and I was like, interesting. And I think that made me just like put me in a bad headspace to watch the movie. I wasn't very like welcoming of it. And I think I just like sat there, was very upset for a long time. And it was just like, oh, this movie is very frustrating to me. And yeah, I just
Well, but we're not
it's kind
alone.
of a
I mean,
bummer.
a lot of people who are huge fans of this musical and who were huge fans of part one are having the same reaction. So it's not just us. We're not
Mm,
alone in this
yeah.
in this kind of negativity. I
Yeah.
think that a lot
Before
of
we were
people
in the
that
minority
love,
and now we're yeah.
yeah, I think it was more frustrating to me when part one came out last year because it seemed so much like, am I in a bubble? Like, am I not seeing something here? Am I missing the point? Like, why do people like this? Why is this
Yeah.
like, why is this clicking so hard in the culture and I cannot get on board with it? But now it seems like everyone has kind of woken up and is like, wait a second. Why are we using animals as a metaphor for immigrants or othered people in our society? What is
Yeah.
going on here? This is a little tough.
Bad mixed metaphor. You were the girl in the bubble, Gabby.
I was in the bubble and I was screaming the way that Ariana Grande is like talking and it's like, what? I can't hear you from my bubble. But
Oh man, yeah. So some of the things I guess I wanted to talk about was just like, I mean, just to start, we had touched on the music thing a little bit, and I think this has been said by other critics already, but like this is a musical movie that doesn't really have like a musical showstopper in a sense, right? I mean, the No Good
no.
Deed, right, is I think supposed to be that big set piece, but personally, I found it really hard to connect to in that moment because it comes from such a place of anger, and it's also like not a very catchy song, at least to me. I don't know. Maybe how do you feel? How did you feel about that midpoint in the movie?
Um, I felt I didn't think the song was bad. I just
Mm-hmm.
thought, and I thought that the anger was interesting, and seeing that kind of shade of quote the Wicked Witch come out from
Good point.
Arivo.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. What didn't click with me was that that song is about Fierro and her love for Fierro, and how she, he's in danger because of her and he's like being killed at that moment because of her. And, she feels this guilt and all of that. But I just don't think that there's like a real connection between those two characters until like two scenes before No Good Deed. So,
Yeah.
like it's very hard for me to buy the emotional connection between them. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of in the first movie, but not really. And this has been brought up a lot by critics too, but this musical is about female friendship. It's not supposed to be about fighting over a boy. So, that whole part of it being lengthened out in the movie also kind of bummed me out. Like I was like, okay, so now we're fighting over a guy? I don't really get it. Um
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, like Erivo and Jonathan Bailey have uh like one scene where it's heavily implied that they hook up in a PG movie. And we can talk about the sex cardigan. We're going to have to talk about the sex cardigan. But I just didn't think that was enough of like an emotional anchor to
Mm-hmm.
make me feel compelled by that no good deed as a showstopper. What I do think is supposed to be the showstopper in this movie is actually For Good. The song at the
Mm-hmm.
end with her and Ariana Grande, that is supposed to be the reflection back to their duet in Defying Gravity in part one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you just don't get the same punch out of it because it's such a soft and emotional
Yeah.
song.
And again, I think we both are on the same page of really liking that song and that performance as
Yes.
well. I did, a review of this on the break room. Actually, guest went back and guest,
You went
hosted
back
for
to
the
your
day.
roots.
Went back to my roots.
You went back to your
And
roots.
yeah, I'll say that like there's a handful of things that I do really like about this movie, and one of them is Ariana Grande's performance in that moment. I mean, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo both really great consistently through this movie. I think the characters and the script is what needs work, but
Jonathan Bailey too. I think Jonathan Bailey is good.
yeah, yeah.
Innocent.
But specifically when Ariana Grande turns, as Glinda, she turns, and towards the beginning of that number, and you can see the lights reflecting on her face because she's crying so much. She's kind of like almost ugly crying, but like not in like, we don't see her like chest sobbing, but like
Right.
her
She's
face
just
is
tearing up.
so wet. It's crazy. And I was just like, "Oh my god, like this is like some real emotion coming out of her that I haven't seen in a long time." I think all the actors are really great in this, and especially in For Good, I think that's such a powerful number, and it did really work on me. Like I still teared up, and I thought it was really emotional, and I just wish
Of
that the
course. I'm
rest
not
of
made of
the
stone.
movie. Well, speak for yourself. Um I'm a modern day Tin Man.
Nessa Rose turned me to stone.
I have Nessa Rose blocked on Facebook. So yeah, I think with the music, if I had more of a relationship with the musical, I think this would have worked. But because, I don't know the songs very well, none of them really pop for me, especially the original songs, like the new ones that they added for the film.
Ooh.
Right? I believe that's The Girl in the Bubble and No Place Like Home.
Yeah, those are tough.
Which
They're pretty tough.
which were tough.
Both of them were equally pretty bad, but for some reason, I don't know, the No Way Home song and just making Elphaba's arc in this movie so tied to the animals really didn't work for me. Like that scene it's kind of like it looks like a Noah's Ark, like a Veggie Tales Noah's Ark
Yes.
movie
Yeah.
where like they're all going underground to the Animal Underground Railroad or something, I don't know, to the place beyond Oz, which we don't hear about until we just then, and then we have
The
to
place
remember
beyond
that
Oz, you
because
mean Arrakis?
yeah, Arrakis. That's what's beyond Oz. That is where Elphaba and Fiero will live happily ever after. Um, I'm glad she got to spend the night with Jonathan Bailey once in his human form because I'm pretty sure scarecrows don't have genitals. Um, good luck. Good
Well,
luck,
it's
girl.
kind of like it's like this and then this and then this, right? For the
Yeah,
for the
what is that?
visual
Shape
heads.
of Water
Shape of
territory
water.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool that Cynthia is the Lisan Al Gaib, you know? Or Elphaba is the Lisan Al Gaib.
Elphaba, Lisan Agaib.
um,
I really liked I do like Ariana Grande's performance the most in these movies. I think Cynthia Erivo is a tremendously talented performer. Like her voice is just there's no other voice quite like it. Like you know when you're listening to Cynthia Erivo sing. And
mhm.
that's very rare and, you know, extremely potent in these films. But I don't know if it's her performance necessarily or the character itself, but just something about the like the seriousness of that character really throws me off and did in the first film as well. Like just the very like dire serious nature, like, you know, there's no comic relief happening there. She's just like she's on a mission. And I was like, okay, but and for some
Yeah.
reason I could be wrong, but this it just gives like very self-serious theater kid to me, and it's not really my vibe. But Ariana Grande I think is doing something different to balance that out, and I really am surprised by how well that works and how deftly she's able to navigate those scenes and navigate these moments of high emotion and really intense, you know, seriousness in a very unserious world, and bring that kind of lightness to it.
Yeah, it's always a testament to when a joke that is shown in a trailer multiple times still has an effect on you in the movie, particularly in the moment, this time when it's not quite a joke, it's more like a tearjerker moment when she's like, and I've had so many friends. It's
Yeah.
such a good moment, it's such good delivery. It really, like, especially in the moment, it's just like, that you really feel that, you know?
She's fantastic. I think she's really great in both parts of Wicked, but I think that she is far and away the best part of For Good. And I think that also For Good feels more like Glinda's movie to me. Wicked Part 1 felt very much like Elphaba's movie, and Glinda was sort of the second-hander, you know, the comic relief, the foil character. But this movie feels very much the opposite. It feels very Glinda forward, which is a relief to me watching it since it's my favorite performance in the movie, but it did make me question, like, is Ariana Grande the lead of this movie? I
I
think
mean, in
she
a sense,
is.
she is, right? Because, like, it's kind of like the main character versus protagonist problem, right? Alphaba
Right.
is not. Alphaba is. It's. This is, like, kind of how I view Captain America in a weird sense, right? But, like, this is a character who has now fully formed their worldview, and they're never at conflict with themselves. They're always just at conflict with the world. And is the world going to bend to their view, or are they. Or how do they continue to commit to themselves, right? And there's never any question in that, so to speak, right?
Mm,
There is a moment in this that, I mean, she's a little bit more valuable than Captain America. I mean, who among us, you know? But I do think that, like, she is so set, and, like, you can clearly tell her path, right? Chart her path throughout this
oh yeah,
movie.
very clear.
And whereas Glinda is obviously changed for good, right? Like, we literally see that it actually happens. She can read the Grimoire by the end of this.
Yes, the all important Grimory. Yeah.
I was really waiting on, edge of my seat. Who's gonna read the Grimoire, you know?
I forgot that that existed until they brought it back. Until Cynthia Erivo was like writhing over it, like na 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 na. I was like, okay. Um, but I think she's the lead of this movie, and I mean, not that it's a huge deal, but I guess it kind of I think they should swap them in like how they're billing this and how they are campaigning these performers, especially for awards coming up, for the Oscars, for yeah, award season stuff. They're still campaigning her and supporting, and I think she has a real shot. Grande does to even to win Best Supporting Actress at
Yeah.
the Oscars at this moment. She feels like the front runner. Everyone really loved her in part one, and part two kind of just seals the deal. But I do kind of feel like it's a little bit of category fraud at this point because I think she's the lead of this
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, it's at the very least, it's a richer character, right?
Yes.
And a richer character in a very weak script that had to expand on a part two of a musical, which I think is historically second acts are usually shorter than the first act anyways, right? Like from what I've heard from like super fans of this, it is like your mileage may vary on like whether or not this stretching this out worked or not, and I do think for the most part it didn't really work from what I'm hearing from people who really know this show super well. Just a lot of interesting pacing issues, but at the same time, this is a movie. You get to explore things that like stage adaptation could not explore. So you kind of pick and choose like what was it better, was it not better, and I feel like some of the things that John Chu and the screenwriters must have been interested in just didn't quite really thread together in like a compelling story in the second one. I think a lot of that has to do with like um when we're introduced to this movie, right, we get like this scene of Alphaba basically being like a superhero, right? Like flying around like Iron Man, surfing her broom, like saving these animals. And you're like, that's really cool. But we kind of like don't have a strong, like maybe emotional center because we see there's so many things happening in the first part of the movie that you're like, okay, just get me back to what works about these movies, which is just Glinda and Alphaba being together, right?
Yeah, and they're not together a lot in these movies, like in
Yeah.
this movie. Like I feel like that is part of the big problem with it and why it doesn't feel like it has a real like emotional center almost because it just there needed to be more scenes of the two of them and people being reminded why we care about this relationship at the heart of this movie and why we care specifically about their friendship and not about a love triangle with the Scarecrow Man.
Yeah, which brings me back to a point that I had mentioned on my break room review of this too. But like, there's a scene that is, we're using as the background of our video. That if you're watching on video, you can see that of Elphaba, Glinda, Bach, and Fiero and Nessa all like going into this like sunny field as if they had been hanging out all night, and it makes you feel like this scene was something from the first movie that you should
It's
remember,
not.
and it's not. And also
It's
we
not.
only ever see it like without dialogue in this movie. It's used as a very interesting payoff to end the film because they recreate the iconic Wicked poster of Glinda whispering to Elphaba, and that's the last shot of the movie, which allegedly John Chu hid from executives because he was like, no one can see this because they're gonna use it in the marketing. Well, you should have used that scene more. I mean, this is, I think,
Sure.
where kind of like
Give us more.
Gabby and I's like creators' brains like work into these things, because like imagine if that scene and the journey that took them to there was like an emotional through line throughout this movie. We could see the five of them being actual friends, the tension between like Glinda and Bach and Nessa in a more real way, and Fiero and Elphaba in just a more thorough way that gives us contrast to the events that are happening. I don't know. Maybe I just like those kind of like frame stories like that, but I feel like there's a version of that which could have been like really strong.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would have helped. It would have strengthened the character relationships in this movie that feel very weak, especially, we have like this whole secondary storyline of Bach still pining after Glinda years and years later, even though he is seemingly engaged or married to Elphaba's sister, Nessa Rose, who becomes the titular Wicked Witch of the East. Very crucial role there. But yeah, like that storyline also felt so shoehorned in and out of place and just kind of like we need to give a bigger explanation to why he becomes a Tin Man or how he becomes the Tin Man. It doesn't seem to fit organically in any way. And maybe if we had seen, a real friendship between that group, we could have understood more the organic nature between the five of them, specifically between Elphaba, Glinda, and the others. Like we see so much of Elphaba and Glinda, and not so much with the others.
Yeah, I think I really agree with you there, Gabby. I think before we kind of like wrap it up on Wicked with some other things that I want to complain about. Again, apologies if you really like this film and you're listening. Sometimes people just disagree. I will say some things that I really did like besides the performances, which we've highlighted already. I really liked this shot of Jeff Goldblum where he is he's the wizard and he's very frustrated that his plan isn't working. Kind of opens up on a close up of him. I think it happens right after No Good Deed. Thought that shot was very nice. And I also really like this shot of a close up of tulips because um
because they planted so many tulips.
yeah, and this movie looks so bad. I don't know why it looks so bad. It's actually made me so upset about how bad I thought this movie looked visually. That when you see the
Well,
tulips, it's
let's
this.
specify real quick. We don't when we say that, we're not talking about the production design, the costumes, anything to
Yeah,
do with that nature. We're
yeah,
talking more about the lighting and the effects. Just to be
yes,
clear.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Gabby. These tulips, when you see the shot, you realize that they're filming these tulips, and this is the most real thing in this whole movie, is that this field of tulips was planted, and the way it's being lit looks like real light. Everything else about this movie, lighting wise, visual effects wise, why does it look so bad? Like I saw it on the the XL, which is not a premium screen, right? But I did think like, why are you never lighting Cynthia Erivo? Are you scared that the green is gonna look bad? Like she's always in shadow, and then anytime she has lighting on her, it's like to accentuate the sun, the fake sun that's lighting the rest of the visual effects. Like there's one other scene where the real sun pops out in this movie, and it's where Glinda and Elphaba are fighting outside the where the wicked
Oh my
witch
god,
of
yeah.
the
Their
east
cat
is
fight.
dead, right? When Nessa's dead. There's you can see real sun in Ariana Grande, and you can hear the justificate. And as someone who's like kind of come up through visuals, you can kind of hear the justification in the back of your head being like, oh no, this is when they're at their most like raw and when they're fighting, and so we need the harsh sunlight to like cast shadows on them, so we can know that like it's not pretty anymore. This is the real sun. This is real. Not to say that that's what the justification is, right? But it was incredibly frustrating to watch a movie with so much money that had so many craftspeople to put so much care into putting things on screen, have it totally flattened out in the post production process, and to have the visual effects look as like weird as they did. Because I think we're entering this weird realm. I mean, this is not a new take, right? Like Marvel movies have looked like this for a while now, but there's this CGI kind of gloop that's happening and this sheen that has to be put onto everything to make it all look more natural. And it just feels bad. There's when Bach goes up to buy his train ticket. This is not a flashy scene at all. Yet the backgrounds are completely CGI'd, and because they're so bright and so shiny, um, they it's not real light, right? So
Mm.
when they're filming Bach, they know they don't need to beat that outside light because that's going to be fake light. So they can use whatever light they want on Bach inside. But because of that, there's this like incongruity of like what's real then, because none of it is. Obviously, it's a movie, but like none of it's real, and it just feels bad. And you were looking at it, and I know that this is like a hyper, I'm like really nitpicking this thing to a certain degree, right? I know a lot of people are gonna watch this movie. They're not gonna feel this way at all. They're gonna be like, this is some dude with a hat on the internet who's just gonna complain about how Wicked for Good looks.
Hmm.
That being said, it's just really, really frustrating to watch movies with so much money feel and look like bad and look, I
Yep.
don't know. I just feel bad about it. Yeah.
I do too. I mean, I think it's just the flattening of films. And I mean, I think we need to. I felt like I was back in Frankenstein during half this movie, to be quite honest. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just because of all of the lighting that you're talking about, inconsistencies, and the sets that like half of it is practical, and you could tell that half of it is practical, and like, that gets to something I really do like about this movie, which is the production design, the costumes, the makeup, I think is all impeccable. Like the crafting of all of this world is completely believable to me. But of course, like in any movie, not everything can be practical. That just doesn't, you can't build all of Oz. I get that. But also, the mixture of those things together, the practical and the computer generated, just needs to feel, more seamless somehow.
Hmm.
I don't know how we do that. You're more of an effects person than I am. But I definitely noticed these things, like the scene behind me, with the flowers and the interior of the wedding that Glinda and Fiero are supposed to have. Spoiler. Um, you could tell that most of that room is practical. The flowers, like everything, like they hung those flower chandeliers, but
Hmm.
the rest of it, all of the green, I'm like, that's a blue screen, and I can tell, and I don't,
Yeah, and
I
part of it
don't
comes
like
from
how
like
that looks together,
and
the
part of it
real and the
comes from
fake.
like needing the movie to be like to look consistent, right? Like they feel like they need to paint everything to make it look a certain way because the CGI is going to look a certain way because the maybe the lighting wasn't thought out ahead enough, so that, like, oh, we don't know how the background's going to look, but we'll figure it out later, right? Like that's why I feel like there's um so many of those clips that go around on the internet where it's like, wow, CGI really fell off, and it's like a shot from like Pirates of the Caribbean or like Transformers, and it's like, well, I think it's just because like even though those were also huge blockbusters, like people were like, this CGI thing might not work out, so we really got to think about it, you
Right.
know?
I
Anyways,
mean, I
yeah.
think we need to start a segment on this show called "Why Does It Look Like That?" I'm
But it can
serious.
also
I
be
like
about good
we talk
things. It could
about
be about
it.
good things.
It can be about good things, totally. But for example, I would like to talk briefly about Mr. Tin Man, Mr. Bach, and the Scarecrow, Fiero the Scarecrow, which is a very strange reveal that comes at the end of this movie that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like you see Fiero getting beaten to death in a cornfield by like the Oz Nazis, and you're like, okay, he's in a cornfield. I see where this is going because Bach has already been turned into a Tin Man at that point. But somehow it did not prepare me for Jonathan Bailey and his beautiful face being covered in like netting and like like just this very strange looking scarecrow. I get it. They don't want to make him look too like he's a beautiful man. They don't want to hide his face too much. He's Jonathan Bailey. But why does Bach look like that? Like why did they give him like the chin extender thing and like the nose that has like, like a he doesn't still look like Ethan Slater is what I'm trying to say. Why does he look like this?
Yeah, because I just think when he gets mad, that dude's metal as hell.
Ooh, you mean that incel is metal as hell?
He's blocking
That's
Glinda
the
on Facebook.
that's arguably the most 2025 thing about this movie is not even the fascism or the animals. It's like Bach turning into a hunk of metal because a gorgeous woman who barely gave him the time of day 5 years ago is getting married and doesn't like him. It's not gonna work. Oh no. I must leave my perfectly, well, I'm not gonna say perfectly good because Nessa Rose is not perfectly good in a lot of ways.
Yeah, she lets
she
the
she
power get
she
to her
banned
head.
she banned the animals, Evan. She's part of the problem.
Yeah, she was like, I can't. My constituents need to know. I will ban the animals too.
I
Oh,
I need to, before we move on to talking about a much better wonderful film. I need to talk about the scene where the animals are in cages and uh Elphaba discovers that they've all been locked up, in the castle or wherever for however long, and they can no longer speak. And I just, why can they no longer speak? Like she's talking to them as if they should speak back to her, but it is never communicated to us, the audience, why the animals can no longer speak. Is it something like, is it a poison? Is it like, are they being gassed? I like, what is happening to the animals that they're losing their speak? Is it something that they're choosing not to speak anymore? I don't know.
This came up, I think, on the break room as well, and I think it's maybe a little bit more clear in the first movie. Like if we rewatch the first movie, I'm sure the professor explains why the animals can't speak. To me, it feels kind of like an American God situation. Like if you don't believe in gods, they disappear. If you don't believe in animals' rights to exist, they stop being able to speak. you know?
This movie makes me hate animals, and I don't want to hate animals, you know? Like, this movie
You have a
makes me one of
dog.
them. I do. I love her very much, but I don't need her to speak either. But also, I'm sorry, one more thing. One more huge gaping plot hole that I need to address is okay, the first movie sets this up, right? It's one of the first scenes that we see is that Elphaba's mother, who is a witch, a magical person, is clearly having an affair with who is very clearly the wizard in the first film. And so Elphaba's father hates her because he kind of knows that she's not his child. She's born green because of this elixir that the wizard was drinking, I guess, when she was conceived. I don't know how that works, but okay, sure. And then in the second movie, there are multiple scenes that Elphaba has with the wizard. There are, and like they're face to face, and we're led to believe that the wizard does not know that Elphaba is his child, but we also don't learn as the audience. We don't get confirmation until after Elphaba has, quote unquote, melted, and Glinda has to go and like march up to the wizard and be like, she was yours this whole time. She's a child of both worlds, so she's so powerful. And he has this like broken look on his face. And I'm like, so wait a second. We, the audience, know that maybe Elphaba is still alive, sure, but Glinda thinks she's dead. And I think some of the audience at this point, if they don't know the musical, might also think she's dead. So are we just supposed to believe that she never figured out that the wizard was her father? Never?
Oh, that's a good
Like
point.
we never get that resolution. We never get the Star Wars moment of like, you're my father, like, or something like that. And I know Cynthia would have eaten that scene up. She would eat that up. And so why do we get no moment of that?
That is such a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
That is like the biggest, like there's a
I
lot of
I will say
screenwriting
maybe it's
sins in this
because
movie, but that's the
Mhm.
biggest like screenwriter sin in this film is that I'm just like, you have planted this so heavily throughout a whole other movie and this movie. And now we get no resolution with the character that it impacts the most.
I mean,
Doesn't
I
make
will
sense.
say I don't think Alphaba cares. I think the wizard cares more about having a family than Alphaba does. Alphaba, I think, has made peace with the fact a long time ago that her father hates her. And she really, I think, right, she wanted to meet the wizard because he could maybe like make her not green, right? Like, or something that was like her dream growing up. And then she met the wizard and was like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm on my own path and I'm gonna save the animals. But to
I
your point,
guess.
it is
I
a
don't
big
know.
miss.
It just would have been all the more compelling to hear her like or to have her grapple with the fact that she quite literally comes from this man. Like he is, like she can still hate him. I don't care. Like she can still be anti-wizard, but I feel like it would make it so much more like viscerally personal if she knew that this is her father doing all of this.
That's true. Yeah.
Just food for
Yeah.
thought, just like when they inevitably expand the Wicked franchise world, maybe we can get some moment like that, but it will have been too late. It will be too late.
I'm trying to see if I can do
The
my
time
best
was
like Jeff
here.
Goldblum. What is like Jeff Goldblum doing it is like, well, Alphaba, I am your father. I'm trying to think like Yeah, I mean, talking about expanding, right? I think this is our last point here, but they are, allegedly talking about expanding with more films in the Wicked universe, so to speak. I don't want to get too much into that. The only question I'll pose is, if they do this, is the next film a bigger or smaller flop than Joker 2?
Ooh, I think smaller. I think that the diehards would still go. Joker lost like
Yeah,
everybody. They lost
that's
even
true.
the diehards. They lost because the
Yeah.
diehards for Joker were just never going to be sold on going to see a musical. But musical people will show up no matter what, though. They are a core group. So I don't know. I'm not sure where they go from here. I feel like they could do a Glinda movie if Ariana Grande wants to keep doing Glinda. I'm sure of it. They would. I'm sure of it. Universal is in the process of drafting out some theme parks for
Mm-hmm.
Oz as we speak. I'm positive that that's going to happen. Um, but there are also other books in this series. It's not
That's
just
true. Yeah.
the Wicked book. Like there are other books. There's a book that follows the son of Elphaba and Fiero. There's a book only about Glinda and her like years, but more I think as a child, which we did get an allusion to via flashback in this movie. So it could look like a lot of things, but I definitely don't think that they're going to stop here, even if this movie is not as warmly received as
Yeah.
its predecessor, because it still is
May-
making a lot of money.
Maybe A Day in the Life of Dillamond?
Ooh, that I will not see. You could not drag me there. No, gun to my head, you can't make me watch a movie about Dr. Dillamond.
Oh my god, wait. Oh my god, I got it. It's Bach, still as the Tin Man. It's Joker, but with Bach.
Joker,
That's
but with
it.
Bach.
That's what's gonna
Okay.
happen. Cause he's still Tin Man. So
He's
he's gonna
still
be
Tin
like,
Man.
they never healed me and Glinda will never do it. And then he's gonna go on a talk show and he'll be like, when you
He's gonna
introduce
start a
me.
podcast.
Yeah. Oh
That's the
yeah.
sequel.
He'll start a
Bach
podcast.
starts a pod, and he
The
just
Bach Pod.
interviews all the women that have rejected him. Season
Yeah.
finale's Glinda. Can't pull
Oh
Glinda.
my god. Bach breaks the Munchkin internet.
Do they have the internet? I don't know.
No, no, no,
But
no. They barely
we
know how to do things.
it's very true. But what else is true is that we cannot talk about this the expansion into the world of Oz without talking about the film that started it all. So let's take a little break and come back and talk about The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of
We're back.
Oz. We're back. Let's talk about the movie that started this mess, Evan. The Wizard of Oz premiered August 25th, 1939, released by MGM Studios, directed by Victor Fleming, written by Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson, and Edgar Allan Wolfe, produced by Mervyn LeRoy, starring the Judy Garland, Ray Bolger, Jack Haley, Burt Lair, Frank Morgan, Billy Burke, and Margaret Hamilton as the OG Wicked Witch of the West. This film is iconic. Don't you think, Evan?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, even if you're someone like me who hadn't watched it in full as an adult, when you watch the movie, it feels like you know everything that's going to happen because of just like its enduring legacy in pop culture, the amount of things that have referenced it. It is like quite astounding how many iconic quotes are from this movie, right? Obviously, this film
Mm-hmm.
is, one the first film in color, right? Used three strip Technicolor. People love the score and the characters. Huge critical success, nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Original Song for Over the Rainbow, Best Original Score, and an Academy Juvenile Award was presented to Judy Garland. Ooh, you think they're gonna break those out again and give one to the kid from Weapons?
I fucking wish. That was an amazing kid performance. We need to bring back the Academy Child Award. I'm firm on that ground.
Yeah.
Um and This movie used to be broadcast every single Thanksgiving on CBS, which is interesting. I do remember watching it that way as a kid, but I didn't realize that it had been going on for so long, even before much, way before we were born. Um, and because of that, and the enduring legacy of it, as you mentioned, according to the National Film Registry, this is the most seen film in cinema history. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was trying to remember how I first had seen it as a kid, because I know I hadn't seen the whole thing, and if I did, I didn't remember all of it just like prior to the viewing, right? But it must have been on Thanksgiving. It must have
Hmm.
been on the TV, and you just watch it, which is
No,
crazy.
it
Yeah.
was on without fail. It was on every Thanksgiving, and it always came on. I think right after the parade, so it would be on like in our house.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
um, but in case you live under a rock and you have not seen The Wizard of Oz, do it. Do that if you're watching Wicked and you haven't seen The Wizard of Oz. Like I have a lot of problems with you and your cinema taste. But just in case, after a tornado hits her farm in Kansas, Dorothy is transported to the magical land over the rainbow called Oz and encounters the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion, and the Scarecrow on her journey to confront the wizard and find her way home. Pretty iconic stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I revisited this movie for the first time as an adult. I think with movies like this, you get really nervous like revisiting classics, and I feel like with a movie like Jaws or The Godfather, or even like recently Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I'm always like, well, am I gonna love this movie? Am I gonna hate this movie? And for the most part, I always generally come out feeling positive, and I feel like that is like the same thing here. I don't think I outright loved The Wizard of Oz, I'll be honest, but it is really hard to like you can't like deny its legacy. It just feels
No,
when watching it, like you're like, wow, they're really flexing on this introduction of Oz, but you're like, it feels important when you watch it. And you kind of
it
just sit there and you're
is
like,
that
wow, I can't believe they did this.
that that shot where it turns to color for the first time is just it's beautiful. It's like everything about it is so well orchestrated and just, it feels like a shift, like an actual shift in movies, because it was an introduction into color and they went full Technicolor for it, which is, why another reason why I think you and I had such a big reaction to the way that Wicked looks, because they do not employ Technicolor and they're paying tribute to a Technicolor film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I mean, this movie, I don't know if I had watched the whole thing as an adult in quite some time, but I rewatched it and yeah, it still just has a special place in my heart. I remember watching it every year. I remember my aunt impersonating the Wicked Witch and my mom singing the songs to us. It's very
Mm-hmm.
special.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. For me, I think that kind of like family movie is like The Sound of Music. I think this one with all the creatures and people in costumes, I think like I mean, I do remember as a kid being quite scared of this movie because of
Really?
how real it feels. I mean, I think, was probably I probably have, very high anxiety, but as a kid, I was definitely very anxious. And I do remember being just like very unsettled. I was like, this guy looks like a lion.
You weren't
But
afraid of the witch? I feel like the
oh,
witch
I
is
was
the
definitely
scariest
afraid of the
part.
witch.
The
Yeah, and
witch
then but
is
watching it
she's
now, I was
so
like, she's funny.
scary. She is funny. She's camp.
Yeah, she's like, I can't do anything to you now, but I will later.
I know. And she has this vendetta against this dog. And I know it's supposed to be, it's the same actor that's playing the neighbor but hates the dog in the
Yeah,
beginning. But God, that's really what's fueling all this, girl. You hate this young girl from Kansas and her dog. All right.
and her dog.
Because she's wearing your dead sister's shoes.
And that's kind of like a really interesting reflection of Wicked, right? Like with the Wizard of Oz, like the way this movie, tells a story about how is his girl's kind of like literal either fever dream or right or maybe like a journey to the afterlife in a certain sense,
Mm,
right? But the film makes very clear that she's like filling this world and characters with people from her own life in a certain
right.
sense. And when you take that logic and you look at the visuals of this movie, obviously this is a movie from a long time ago, but
Mhm.
and you can see the backgrounds are just painted backgrounds
Yeah, they're
that don't
paintings.
quite extend. But that kind of makes sense because you're like, well, this is a dream in a sense. It's constructed. She's building this, right? And then you have John Chu saying, well, we want this to feel like a real world. We want Wicked to feel real. And it looks so washed out. You're like, well, present us a world that is so colorful, we'll believe it's a real world. And you don't
Yeah.
have to make it this other thing.
We don't need to make this the dark, gritty, grayscale Wizard of Oz. We don't need it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. You had different feelings. You thought that they could have gone even harder on the allusions to the Wizard of Oz in Wicked for Good. Care to elaborate on that now?
Oh yeah, that's a great point, right? So, obviously in Wicked for Good, we see hints of Dorothy, like the back of her head and things like that, as well as like the kind of troop getting together. And I think that like seeing this movie now, I'm like, okay, if they had leaned further into it, they would have had to change a lot more of like the story of the Wizard of Oz in order to reconcile, I think, of what was going on um with the movie. Like because there's certain things right in Wicked for Good, right? The Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion, they probably don't get all those things they get at the end of the Wizard of Oz. But
Right.
I think what I would have liked to see is that in a movie version, you could have explored those characters' journey. Obviously, we were already complaining that there's a lot going on, so maybe it wouldn't have worked. But I like that, and I personally was like, oh, maybe you could have seen a little bit more of Dorothy and the crew, and like kind of like Fierro's playing this double agent in the beginning of the movie. We could have continued seeing him play the double agent when she's with Dorothy. He's kind of still protecting Elphaba. When she's on her journey to kind of like kill the witch, so to speak.
Kill the witch. Bring me her broom.
I do, and also like at no point is it ever established that water will melt her, right? Like it's just a
No,
rumor.
not in the movie. It's a rumor.
Yeah. So it's really funny that like even Glinda doesn't like think that it's that like that's fake. Like it's so funny to me. She's like, "Oh no, my best friend got melted by water."
Girl,
So goofy.
I don't know. How smart is Glinda? I mean, we'll
That's true.
figure. I don't know.
That's true. Seeing this movie, I am like, okay, maybe you're right, Gabby. Maybe we should have seen even less of Dorothy. Just
Yes,
like
I
now
think.
having this so recent. Yeah.
I mean, well, we don't see Dorothy's face at all in Wicked for Good. It's we see the back of her, we see her walking, we see her shadow, but which I thought that the shadow thing was kind of clever, but I just think that yeah, Wicked is best enjoyed when it is separated kind of from the actual Wizard of Oz tale. When it's just this origin story, I find it a lot more believable and a lot more easy to buy into the world a little bit more, you know? Like once you bring in these core characters that are so iconic to, the film canon and to culture, pop culture, everything, I feel like you're kind of playing with fire. Like you're kind of if you there's no right way to do it. Like nobody is going to come at you and be like, "Wow, you did this absolutely perfectly," because you can't. Like you can't do
Hmm.
it again. I just think you're kind of yeah, like there's no good outcome to me.
Yeah. No,
So
it's a
just
great
don't do
point.
it.
It just do it. Yeah, they
But
have to be viewed
I
in
know that
isolation.
I know that they are part of the musical, but I think they're a much smaller part of the musical. Like it's all kind of just happening in the background, you know? It's not of the Glinda Alphaba stuff. It's not as, from my understanding, it's not as on Front Street as it is here.
Yeah, because then the stories don't really mesh very well, I guess. Like Dorothy's whole like thing. I don't know. I guess it's still like there's no
No.
place like home, but like that was also an addition to this movie. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I did think that
Some really interesting stuff.
Glinda's scenes were funny when she was like that annoying girl and her dog.
I mean, to be fair, she's kind of annoying.
She is kind of annoying, but whatever. Hero's journey.
It is. I
Let's
was gonna do a joke letterbox review and say like The Wizard of Oz is about the four most annoying people you know asking for things they already have, but I was like, no, that's too disrespectful.
Disrespect. We have talked about it a little bit already, but there are some, we're talking about it now, the recurring characters that are in this world.
Mhm.
How do you feel kind of watching Wicked for good and then watching Wizard of Oz? Do you feel like more connected to the Wicked Witch? Like, do you feel like that backstory really exists? Do you feel less connected to it? Like, how do you feel in terms of squaring the two of them existing, like coexisting?
I think it adds like an interesting like layer, but just to the witches, really. But Glinda in Wizard of Oz just feels so like hoity-toity that like it's
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I appreciated the dynamic they had in Wicked for Good more than and then it doesn't really you can't really square that circle in Wizard of Oz, you know.
Yeah.
It adds interesting meta layers, but I think that's why Wicked is best consumed after seeing The Wizard of Oz and not kind of like this vice, not the other way around.
I mean, I totally agree, but we're preparing to enter a world now where like small children have seen Wicked and they haven't seen The Wizard of Oz. So
Yeah,
something that personally would bother me is like if my
that's
child
true.
from my future child comes up to me and is like has seen Wicked somehow. I don't know how. I won't let them, but if they come up to me and they're like, "Look, mom, it's Fiero," when they're pointing at the scarecrow, I'm gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" Or like, "It's Elphaba," and I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Pause, pause. These are all people from Dorothy's life on her farm. This is, it's all a metaphor, my child." Like, we are entering that world where like kids are gonna see
Yeah.
Wicked before they see Wizard of Oz, and I think that that's crazy, but I don't know. Like, I wonder how that is gonna impact like the legacy of both of these properties, and I
I
mean
mean, the
how
craziest thing they could do is make a new Wizard of Oz movie, but set in the world of Wicked,
it's not. No, don't
right?
speak that into the world, Evan. Do not
I think that's
speak
what they're
it.
gonna do. That's what they're gonna do. Oh my
No, they're
god.
not. They can't
I
do
can't
that.
believe it.
No,
I can't believe it. That's what they're gonna do.
they can't do that. I don't even think John M. Chu would do that, and he's made some weird choices.
Wicked, Dorothy's Tale. Come on,
Coming
it's there.
coming
They're gonna do it.
2029.
The
That's
WCU is
not what I
here.
want. Ugh, this is so upsetting to me now.
It's a real bummer right before Thanksgiving.
Ugh. Well, at least we rewatched this movie before Thanksgiving.
That's
Like at
true.
least we kind of put it back in its place in its its tradition. Why
Mm-hmm.
how about we do something good out of all this Wicked craze and we just start broadcasting The Wizard of Oz on Thanksgiving again? I don't think they do it anymore.
Yeah, it's because HBO Max wants you to sign up.
Yeah, just let them broadcast it. It's not a big deal. Let them broadcast.
All right, well, before we wrap it up here, let's talk about some other links that we were thinking about. This was a really interesting one because we went back and forth for a while on whether we wanted to pair this with another like film that had to do a part 2 type thing, right? Like a Breaking Dawn part 2 or a like Deathly Hollows part 2. Um the final Hunger Games movie, right? That was a part 2.
Mm-hmm. Part two. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the best pairing for this movie, other than The Wizard of Oz, I mean, I think that we were not going to do The Wizard of Oz at first. We were like, oh, is that too easy? And then we saw the movie at both of us, and you were like, should I watch one of these other choices that we had? And I said, actually, I think we should go back to Wizard of Oz. But I actually think that other than that, my choice probably would have been Deathly Hallows Part 2 because I feel like it's similarly kind of like a little sloppy, but like, but wrapping everything up kind of, in a way that maybe is dragging stuff out and feels very much like a part 2, like it doesn't feel like its
Mm,
own thing. So I thought that that would have been an interesting thing to talk about is like movies that are kind of split in half. Um but that would have been a crazy amount of prep work for Evan because he's not caught up on the Harry Potter movies. When was the last
I
time you
bought
watched
the
the Harry Potter
last
movies?
high school maybe. I have
Mm.
after I fell asleep during the sixth film at a midnight screening, which was my
The
most which
sixth film?
started yeah, it started
I
my
like the
trend of
sixth
falling
film.
asleep during. Well, no, it was a midnight screening and I was jet
Oh,
lagged. I was in
okay.
California for the first time.
Oh.
So I fell asleep and it was started my trend of falling asleep during movies, which I hate and am very
And you
embarrassed about, but I'm
maintain
very
to this day?
confident talking about. Yep. Yeah, bought the last book on the first day it came out. Just never read it. Just had it just sitting in my parents' house.
That's good. You'll
And I
get
never
to it
read and
someday.
never watched the movies. One day, yeah.
You'll get to it. We also contemplated, yes, The Wiz,
Mhm.
the Sidney Lumet version of the musical The Wiz, starring Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. That would have been fun to talk about. Recently got a Criterion release. It's being
Mhm.
reclaimed in a way. And we also, Evan suggested Moulin Rouge as a way to talk about kind of movie musicals. Moulin Rouge also, that would have blown this out of the water. Like, it's a better musical.
I mean,
And it's
just
not even
the
a real musical.
I was yeah, that's right. I was really mostly reacting to the Jonathan Bailey and Elphaba, Fiyero and Elphaba like sex cardigan scene and that
Yes,
whole
we forgot
song
to talk
because
about
it's
the sex cardigan. Oh my god,
but
Evan.
but but that scene that precedes the sex cardigan is really like kind of like the elephant room love scene coded in Moulin
It
Rouge.
is.
Just like the way
Definitely.
they're like moving about, the camera,
Mm-hmm.
even like I think Ewan McGregor is in a white button down too, and it's like
Yes.
very just like similar vibes.
About that scene. Just wanna say nothing screams musical theater more than like two queer performers needing to pretend that they're like desperately in love with each other and really want to kiss, and like especially in a PG setting. I'm like Jonathan Bailey, openly gay man, Cynthia Erivo, openly queer woman. They have like they're really trying. Like they're really
Mm-hmm.
trying. I buy that they're
Mm-hmm.
trying, but they just have zero chemistry. And maybe that's because I know this about them and I have too much like musical theater anxiety from being on stage crew and like seeing all the like closeted kids in my high school deal with this.
Yeah.
But that was a tough watch, and the cardigan really made up for it. The cardigan looks like it's a floor length cardigan, Evan. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I guess when musical theater people are not famous for being promiscuous, but are they not getting laid enough that they think that that's what you wear before you have sex is like a floor length cardigan with holes in it? Like that's not
She
lingerie.
she lives in the woods. Cut her a break.
She does. She lives in a treehouse and they literally like float down into like a bed that is in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
That is somehow like perfectly lit and like romantic lighting and like it's she was ready for this.
Yeah.
And she says that it's the only time that she's ever felt wicked. Can't forget that one.
Oh God, I love when they say the title. You know.
Do we?
Who's to
Okay.
say?
Well, okay.
That's it for us today. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to us on audio, leave a review or comment, and don't forget to check out the video versions of these on YouTube at Back to the Future Pod. You can follow the podcast on Letterboxd at Back to the Pod and on Instagram at Back to the Future Pod. I recently got the login to the Instagram, so you'll
And you
never
are
know what you'll
unstoppable now.
see on there. Uh,
Unstoppable.
We'll be covering the next installment of the Knives Out movie up next. We are very excited to watch that. I'll be seeing it in theaters. I don't know about you, Gabby.
I will absolutely be seeing it in theaters as soon as I get back from the East Coast, where I will be Black Friday shopping for a sex cardigan.
We'll catch you
as
later.
well as
See
spending
ya.
time with my family. Bye!